Coming up, death. It's the Bookening. Hey everybody, welcome to the Bookening. I'm sorry about the Halloween puns this year. I know they haven't been... No, I'm not sorry about their existence. I'm just sorry they're not deader, you know?
Oh.
Like, they should be, you know, I do this every fear. They should be deader than they are, I think. Deader, of course, being a Halloween pun for better. This year I've been just kind of letting myself do some subpar Halloween puns.
It's okay. You're absolved.
Thanks, Brandon.
You're welcome.
That, of course, Brendan Chast Fiend.
You're stab-solved.
He's a priest, apparently.
Stab-solved.
Absolving people over here.
Oh, yeah. I got my quick priest's license from CatholicPriest.com.
You went to CatholicPriest.com? Got a license?
Yeah.
You have to fill out a form or anything?
Nope.
No? You just
He just had to renounce his family, that's all.
That's all.
You just had to renounce your family?
That's all I had to do.
For your family.
Well, they don't know. The CatholicPriest.com that I wasn't serious. All they say is, do you renounce your family? And you just say, yes, that's part of the problem with these terms and conditions. You don't even have to read them anymore.
So you're okay with announcing to your wife, though, that you renounced her in jest?
In jest, yeah. I announced you in jest, honey. Denounced. Renounced.
Yeah.
Denounced. Announced.
There you go. It's Brendan Chast Fiend. He uses the words. He's the scholar who's a mauler of bleeding.
So gross.
And, of course, the pastor who's a disaster of bleeding.
That's even grosser.
Just imagine Jake's just taking a
bleeding
grenade
all
to
over
the
the
chest
place.
or something. It's Jake Mentzkiller.
That's me.
Mm-hmm.
And I never give
That's
myself...
my real name.
Oh, I forgot to say last time, I'm your humble and obedient ghost.
Ooh.
Yeah, Nathan Albersin.
Well, I'm sorry. It's not that easy to do a Halloween pun for Nathan.
Everybody's so disappointed.
Everybody's feelings are hurt.
Yeah.
Mine, most of all.
Mm-hmm. Yours, ghost of all.
Oh,
True.
so good. So
Guys,
good.
before we talk about Frankenstein, let's compose a Halloween poem.
Oh, boy.
So, everyone, if you're sitting around your fire, turn down the lights and get ready for some spooktacular poetry. Ad lib, dead lib, ad squib,
Dead-limbed.
dead limbed. Yeah, we're going to dead limb some poetry. We'll each just do the lines. It was Halloween night,
Oh, what a fright.
When what should appear?
but a man with a spear
He broke down my door.
Right down to the floor.
Nice.
and stabbed me real hard
I bled screaming through the yard.
And then I fell down.
right onto the ground.
Slant rhyme. Boo.
Yeah. Then I fell down right onto the ground.
Then I fell down as I
At
fled
the feet
from
of a clown.
That's still a slant rhyme. I'm trying to deslant.
Down and clown?
Yeah.
Down and clown's not a slant rhyme.
No, down and clown.
All right.
Perfect
Fine.
rhyme.
At the feet of a clown.
He pulled me to the drain.
And sang his refrain.
Ha 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 he he.
How happy we'll be.
My face is orange.
Oh.
And I am a clown.
The end.
I don't know, being creepier than I expected it would be. All right. You're welcome, kiddos. We'll come back next week, if I remember, with another Halloween poem, because that's what we do. We like to celebrate the month of Halloween all month long when it's Spooktober and we're doing scary stuff. So
Wish we had those pumpkin Reese's peanut butter cups.
I wish we had those pumpkin Reese's peanut butter cups too.
Those are really good.
Those are, like, a lot of times novelty-shaped candy will just get the proportions wrong. And with a Reese,
Reese's novelties are always better than the real thing.
precisely.
Yep.
That's
Eggs.
Man, those are
yeah,
good.
the eggs are the bomb.
Let's go get some. We'll see you later, people.
Yeah, thanks for listening. Hey, let's talk about Frankenstein. Did you guys enjoy this novel?
I think I said I was kind of indifferent towards it.
Yeah, that's right. You already.
Yeah.
I enjoyed parts of it, but really, it didn't do a lot for me or to me.
Mm-hmm. You
Which
weren't
is
terrified under
No.
the sheets reading with a flashlight?
I wasn't terrified under the sheets. I think a lot of interesting ideas and things to talk about come out of it.
It's a novel that's fun to approach academically, that's fun to theorize about, that's fun to read and kind of speculate about Mary Shelley's life.
It's best in context. It's
Yes.
best in in Shelley's personal context, and it's best in context of sort of the history of the genre.
Yeah. I really wanted to sympathize with Victor more than I did.
Mm-hmm.
And I think a lot of it has to just do with the over-the-topness of the expression of emotion.
Mm-hmm.
Like even early on with Walton's, her attempt to make him seem like some
Super genius,
forlorn, brilliant man. That the sort of thing that Conrad does a much better job at with Heart of Darkness.
I'm glad you said that, because what a wonderful counterpoint to talk about, where he's doing kind of similar sort of things with Marlowe and this mysterious stranger sitting in the darkness smoking his pipe, and you're really like, who is this guy? But he finds those details that tell, whereas she's just like, he was really a compelling guy.
So, I mean, you end up, maybe it's the point, you end up sympathizing more with a monster than you do with Frankenstein.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that's necessarily her point, but at least that's the way I felt it. Also, that whole scene, this is just an aside, this doesn't even have to stay in. I'm wondering if that whole scene where he's watching the family, I'm wondering if that was an inspiration for that creepy last story of Jesus' son, where he's the...
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that could be.
Because he's kind of a monster, but he's healing at that point.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that maybe he's... anyways.
What was the point of that section? Like, what was she trying to do there?
She needed a way for him to learn how to speak.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it takes... You have that whole thing about, what's her name?
so she
Justine,
needed two
the
things. She
Islamic
needed two
girl
things.
and everything.
She needed a reason for him. She needed a way for him to learn how to speak.
Mm-hmm.
A way for him to learn some basic understanding of people, and a way to be hurt.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So that he could become the monster because if you believe in, as Brandon was saying, in the context or the innate goodness of man left to himself, he needed to be twisted.
But it's like the immaturity of her as a writer just shines through in all these places where it's just like, I need this to happen. So, okay, I guess this happened. There's no particular...
This massive monster manages to live in a lean-to attached to the side of their house.
Right.
Well, he had to have a way to have an education.
Mm-hmm.
And so you see that she does that with, he first puts together images and things begin to have definition, and then he starts to learn language. And then out of that, he begins to learn history. And then out of that, he learns to read. And then he has his 3 books that teach him. They were Plutarch's Lives,
Paradise Lost.
and what was the other one?
Oh, I forget.
It was important. Was it The Sorrows of Young Werther? I think it was The Sorrows of Young Werther.
Could be. I don't remember.
It definitely was. So those are the 3. So the first one he talks about was The Sorrows of Young Werther, where he felt very sympathetic to Werther. And then the Plutarch's Lives, because Werther taught him sentiment. Plutarch's Lives taught him high sentiment. And then Paradise Lost taught him to sympathize with the devil, basically. And to question his creator. And so what she's doing is she thinks she's being clever and revealing to us how we progress with our education. First, we start out as classical education teaches us, which is very useful with Dorothy Sayers. We start out with the young stage where we're just learning and memorizing things. Then we start to learn to question, and then we turn into the poet, right? And so you see him progressing on those stages. Into the poet is where he wants to have a relationship and go and talk to this family. What I think she's doing with that one family, why she has that family, because they're supposed to be kind of the ideal. Mm-hmm. They're a good family.
Why the intrigue about Islam?
Because she was a political person, and she thought, it was about those who are on the margins and social injustice.
Marginalized, I see.
I mean, she was a very political person. I think that comes out there with, what was his name? The son, Ernest or something?
The one that dies? Or... Oh, I'm sorry. The
one in the hut.
In the hut, yeah.
Yeah, the one who the Arabic woman comes back to.
Mm-hmm. I don't remember what it was.
But so he did this noble thing. He gave up
his whole life
for her sake, and his whole family suffered for her sake. But then you have them in the state of nature, isolated in this German woods, and they're happy and they're content. And it's this romanticized idea of, like Rousseau had, the perfect barbarians who are separated from society. Now that they're away from society, they can be this ideal family, and the whole relationships that he sees between them, how sweet the brother is to the sister and how sweet the father is to all of them. And then how it's just so one-dimensional.
Right.
It's very, very cheesy.
Yeah.
What I kept feeling is that this plays into what, it has none of the three-dimensionality of Jane Austen or Tolstoy. It just plays exactly into how she wants the world to look.
Mm-hmm.
And she's able to get away with, in the case of that family, the family comes to us from the creature through Frankenstein, through Walton, to Walton's sister. And so everything like that, she doesn't even have to try to not be
sentimental.
Yeah,
Right.
she can just be as sentimental as she wants to be. And it's all filtered through like 5 different lenses. And so
I wish that she used that to do something more mythic or more to give us. If she's going to do that, I wish she had the talent to do it well.
Something more honest.
well, it's just sort of it's not honest. It's a cop out.
But if you're going
In that
to
sense.
if you're going to reduce it to the level of a fable, then let's tell a fantastic fable. Like what I'm thinking of is the first third of Dracula. The second 2/3 really fall apart as we talk about on those podcasts, but the first third really feels big and mythic and scary, and he's going to the castle and there's these brides and there's Dracula, and it's just it functions. It's not deep, it's very two-dimensional, but the two-dimensionality actually becomes an asset because it functions as just pure nightmare. Beyond just a few random images of the monster grinning through the window, maybe when he's making the bride and some stuff like that, she's never able to give us that, at least I didn't feel that mythic kind of feeling of, oh, here's a fable about a creature that was outcast and went into the woods and found this family. The Grimm brothers, you just imagine how they would tell that story. They'd wring a lot of simple truth and a lot of simple emotion out of a story like that. Mm-hmm. And they do it with fairly two-dimensional archetypes and simple language. She has the two-dimensional archetypes and she has the simple language, but she doesn't manage to wring much out of it somehow.
No, it's because it's all just this very misguided understanding of the world.
Well, the horror of doing something forbidden and something perverse is there, and it's there to be felt, I think, at various points in the novel. And depending on where you are in life, I can see this book being a very powerful experience of that for you in terms of processing, your deep, dark sins, the things that you're ashamed of, the things that you've done or are tempted to do that are perverse or unholy, forbidden. And so that's there, and all of that's there depending on how much you bring to it, I think, and how much you maybe need somebody to help you externalize that. I think for the first time is where it's got to be its most powerful.
Horror is always the province of the young, because young people like seeing these things externalized. It helps them think through their own sin and depravity and the way the world works.
But I think that actually helps me put a finger on what I was trying to say, then kind of got lost in trying to articulate it. Mm-hmm. The problem with her is, since the Romantics are so much about the sublime and the intensity of feeling, it rings false.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah.
And then so his, like, going into fits and all these fevers that he goes into and all this just
for
as
months
intense.
at a time.
She sees this as a virtue, and you just like say he's like a major baby.
Well, and then
Like
he'll
he's
go
like
for
he's
a walk.
like he's dramatizing all this, and it's kind of perverse.
He'll go for a walk in the countryside, and
Yeah.
suddenly he'll feel better. And you really see that bogus romanticism where it's just like Clavel and me, and then it'll go on for 3 boring pages about a walk, through the countryside. Suddenly he feels invigorated. He feels good again, and it's just like.
And so that's where you really see her immaturity coming through, is that I'm with you that the story itself, like we didn't even talk about what the modern Prometheus means. This guy who's done something he shouldn't have done.
Prometheus stole fire from the gods, if anybody doesn't know.
And he gave fire to us, and so we would have fire, and he was punished for it. Mm-hmm. And so Victor Frankenstein, he goes and he finds the secret to life, and now he's punished for it. Mm-hmm. That's the conceit. That's the metaphor that's running through here. Mm-hmm. But the real problem, I think, really is just it's her immaturity, her lack of any sort of nuance about her romanticism. She's still living in this naive Lake Geneva period. My understanding is that her later fiction becomes much more complicated.
Yes, I've heard that too. I don't know it from firsthand.
But yeah, so just. And it's this sort of same stupidity you get with Sorrows of Young Werther. I've read that book, and I don't recommend it at all to anybody. It's just foolish love of your emotion for your emotion's sake. I'm trying to think of, it reminds me of certain movies where the intensity of your feeling is all that matters.
Right.
It doesn't matter whether or not it's right or wrong. It's just, and so he goes to Mont Blanc, and he has this intense spiritual connection with the world. And it kind of heals him, but also it's just the fact that he can feel so intensely, which is his virtue.
Yeah.
That's Victor's virtue, and also then his downfall. And you see that she's just really in love with that idea.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, she's hot for a man who has the power to redefine the world and and make himself a god.
Yeah.
But she understands on some
feels-
level that that's a destructive thing. Like she's not going to pretend like it ends happily, but there's something existential and noble about he's going to trek into the wilderness.
The tragedy of the man who can touch the gods,
Yeah.
And
you have to imagine that's the way she looked at Shelley.
Right.
I mean, at this point, she had already had to forgive him for his adultery, or maybe not even adultery at the time. She committed adultery with him, and then he went and fornicated with Claire.
Her sister.
Yeah, it was all just messy and nasty and gross. And she had to somehow justify this to herself by saying, well, Percy is a genius. He's one of these great gods, and
And what goes hand in hand with that is this deep feeling and passion that is hard to control and tame, and goes out and does and creates the very thing that will destroy him.
I mean, it's the same sort of excuses people make for like rock stars and stuff today. It's the existential philosophy we'll get if we ever do Camus.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they were both sleeping with Simone de Beauvoir and Sartre Camus at the same time, and just this really twisted love triangle, and they were all okay with it, or at least they said they were okay with it. The reason is because your philosophy, even if it runs contrary to your conscience and to the natural feelings that you just have, your philosophy has to be vindicated somehow. And so that's what this novel is doing. Is it feels so unnatural because she's trying to vindicate a philosophy that in the end is hollow and empty.
Well, the fascinating thing is if it's a saga of a rock star, then it's written by the ultimate groupie, and she doesn't give the groupies in the story any agency. Not to get all sex politics about it, but the Mary Shelley characters in this story, the women, are all passive and obliterated, just destroyed. And you don't get the feeling that they're necessarily
awesome young flowers that get crushed.
Yeah, that just get destroyed on the wedding night. I mean, there's no way around the
symbolism,
the Freudian, the Freud of it all. I wouldn't give this novel to anyone to process these things, I don't think. Not that I think it's super perverse or that a mature 15-year-old couldn't handle it, but I just don't think it's all that great. I think you could probably go other places for this same symbolism.
You could do worse, though. What would you give them?
Well, I'm trying to think. I knew that would be the next question, and I'm not quite sure I have an answer.
Yeah, I wouldn't be against giving this to anyone.
I'm not saying I'd be against it. I'm just saying I would never think to, because I don't have a lot of respect for it as an actual novel.
My take on this book is that for a teenage person who would be tempted by the romantic ideal,
right?
There's a reason that Shelley and Mary Shelley and Percy Shelley, all these people were tempted by romanticism. Is because it's a very tempting philosophy for someone who wants to be all about no responsibility, bohemian lifestyle, and sex.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it gives you everything you want. You get to look at yourself as a god, or at least a potential god, or someone who has the right to be among gods, and you also get to have all the pleasure you want.
Do you think that a modern teen reading this is going to come away romanticizing that and romanticizing Victor Frankenstein?
I don't think so. I think our culture is so changed now that this book really doesn't hold those dangers for a modern teenager.
I don't know that
anything,
they're probably going to laugh at it.
Yeah, that's the thing I'm thinking is it doesn't hold the enticements, and therefore it's not effective. Like it holds neither the dangers nor the virtues, because it's just maybe I'm reading too much of my own experience of the novel.
I may be too old. I don't feel it to be very dangerous, but I feel it to have some potential virtue for somebody.
Where I would land is that with a good teacher, you could draw these things out for the students, and they would be able to see it.
I would rather that they read Something Wicked This Way Comes, actually.
But I think there's good fodder for discussion here.
That's probably fair.
You've got Will, and you've got, what's Darkshade? What's his name? Jim?
Mm-hmm.
Uh-huh.
Jim is Victor Frankenstein. He wants to ride that carousel. Much more fun. I mean, like if I had a 15-year-old kid, I'm just thinking, which one would I actually be excited to read? I'm not being.
Oh, yeah.
I'm not being a moralist here. I'm just being a person
pragmatist.
I'm just somebody that likes books, and it's just like, who wants to read Frankenstein? Who wants to make kids read Frankenstein? You can read the Wikipedia summary, and you'll have gotten most of what's good out of the book. I mean, honestly, there's just
the idea. The reason the idea survives is because the idea itself is powerful.
Yes, I agree.
And I want to maintain that the idea itself is so powerful that this still holds up as a place to process that sort of thing.
I guess what I'm trying to get at, I don't disagree with you at all. I guess what I'm trying to get at is times change, culture moves on. You go back and you watch 2001 and Space Odyssey, those special effects that blew everyone's mind and that hippies went and smoked dope and had trips, they just aren't that exciting anymore. And I think it's silly for, I think a lot of artistic poser type people will pretentiously oppress themselves and others by trying to pretend like something that had a lot of power 50 or 100 or 200 years ago still does. And it's just like, I'm sorry, this idea actually has been absorbed by pop culture. It's been done 1,000 times now. Let's not pretend like the original still retains much potency. You want to get a good version of the idea, maybe just watch the 1931 Boris Karloff movie. It's an hour long. It'll give you most of the major ideas. It won't be as heavy on the sexual symbolism because they couldn't have even gotten away with what's done in the book in the movie back then. That's how much times have changed. But, at least you'll get the part where the guy says, "Henry, in the name of God." And he says, "In the name of God, now I know what it feels like to be God." And, you'll sort of get the Promethean idea, and you'll get it in an hour instead of spending 6 hours reading a book that really doesn't hold a lot of potency anymore.
Go read The Tale of Prometheus.
You could go read The Tale of Prometheus.
You do that?
Yeah.
I think your best bet, I'm going to say your best bet is to read Something Wicked This Way Comes.
So you would not put this on a high school reading list?
Nah, I don't think so. I'm not opposed to, if Jake wants to say put it on a high school reading list, I'll send my kids to Jake's school and I won't be sorry. But it wouldn't be my first choice to put on a high school reading list. Why not put something good? There's a lot of books,
Wow.
Am I being, what am I being? Am I being a snob? Am I being a...
I think you might be being a little bit of a snob, but it is not the most exciting book, and it's certainly not the most well-written book.
You know what I'm being is I'm just channeling my 17-year-old self and just saying...
I wouldn't want to read this.
I would never want to read this. This is so boring. Like, there's so many good,
How about your 13 or 14-year-old self?
Well, I may have tried it then, and I think I tried it a number of times. I mean, I went through maybe a 15-year period where I was into all the gothic and horror and stuff. I could never make it through Frankenstein.
You were looking for something different.
But I mean, I read Picture of Dorian Gray, which is basically just a bunch of Oscar Wilde people trading barbs and maybe a little smattering of horror. Like, I read all that stuff. I read everything. There's nothing that there's none of the classics that I didn't do, but Frankenstein, I mean, I've done Jekyll and Hyde, but Frankenstein.
Jekyll and Hyde is hard.
Yeah. So,
I think I tried Jekyll and Hyde multiple times. Maybe I did persevere in it at one point, but I don't remember if I did or didn't. I know that I tried it multiple times and just thought, ugh.
Well, that's a perfect example of a potent idea, one that's helpful for high schoolers to think through, one that can teach you something about yourself, and a slog of a book. Mm-hmm. And that's one that I got through just on principle because I liked the genre and I wanted to know who the forebears were. Frankenstein, I didn't feel
that this was nearly as much of a slog as Jekyll and Hyde to me back in the day. Maybe I would have felt differently about Frankenstein back in the day. It wasn't a page turner. It was not.
Right.
No, I wasn't excited.
But I wasn't excited, but I also never really resented having to come back and keep plowing through it.
No, I'm kind of in the same place. So like I said, my feeling in the end towards this book is just complete indifference. Mm-hmm. I think that if someone were to tell me that they wanted this on their high school reading list, what I would say is I would first think about who the teacher is.
Yes, absolutely.
And if it's a good teacher, they're going to be able to draw really good things to say about romanticism and about horror and teach the children about the follies of romanticism and all this stuff, then fine. They can get it from this. And then they can also do Something Wicked This Way Comes as a nice parallel and palate cleanser.
If I was teaching this, if I was a high school teacher, what I would do, this is actually what I would do. I would have the kids read a Shelley. I'd have them do Rime of the Ancient Mariner, of course, some of the classics. I'd have them read a poem by all these guys so that they got the sweep of the movement. I'd give them the history. And then we would read a couple of selections from Frankenstein, actually. We would just read The Creation of the Monster.
I think you could get away with that.
We would read...
Yeah, I think that's good.
Yeah.
This is a book that screams to be abridged.
Yes.
Yeah,
because you've got all the whole scene in Oxford when he goes with Serval. Yeah. There's just no reason behind that except she just wants to talk about it.
I like that. In the course of a literature class, this sort of satisfies my hesitation with dismissing it.
Yes.
Reading a few it's such a touchstone.
It is.
Type thing.
And so get the nutrition out. So go ahead and get what's nutritious from it. Realize there's not that much flavor at this point, 200 years down the road. And so let's get the nutrition as quickly and efficiently as possible and move on.
Yeah.
I agree with that. I like that. I like that.
All right,
We cracked the code.
Bookening consensus.
So we take our scalpel to it.
Look at that. We had a disagreement, and then we argued to consensus like we always do.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
I think we should end with a disagreement. I think we should keep the whole book because books should not be... Are you a Nazi? Is that what you are?
No, yeah. Because the point of argument is not to come to agreement or consensus. It's just to
Nathan?
Yes, Brandon, I'm a Nazi.
Yeah, Nazi. So how every good argument ends is by accusing someone of being a Nazi.
Yeah, I think so. There's a name for that.
I win.
Yeah, it's a principle.
Yeah, it's the
It's
the principle that every online argument will end with Hitler being invoked.
Yeah. I mean, so are we going to talk about that argument?
It'd be more fun than talking about Frankenstein.
So
Godwin's law.
Godwin's law, yes. Hey, Godwin. Hashtag Godwin.
Hey, Godwin. Is it the same Godwin? William Godwin?
He would always reduce arguments to Hitler.
Yeah. I mean, he was a prophet.
Yep. Let go and let Godwin.
Yeah, every argument should be a screaming match.
Mike Godwin.
We should raise our voices really loudly. Now, Nathan.
Coined in 1990 on Usenet.
That's fascinating. Mike Godwin was a prophet.
And it was about the internet. And it was about Usenet newsgroup discussions. And it is the adage in its proper form is, as an online discussion grows longer, the probability of a comparison involving Hitler approaches.
Yeah.
Which implies if it goes on long enough, sooner or later, someone will compare somebody or someone in the discussion to Hitler.
Yeah, because that's the ultimate ad hominem attack.
Mm-hmm. You're the ultimate ad hominem attack.
Easy there, Nathan. You're the one who wants to cut books down.
Yeah.
This is a classic for a reason. It's part of the canon, Nathan.
I am a pragmatist when it comes to books. I think that, honestly, if we want to wring a little discussion out of this, I'm sure we've probably talked about this before, but I just think books were made for man. Man was not made for books. You should be deferential towards your fathers in the faith, obviously, but your fathers in, the great minds that have come before you. You should be deferential to them. So you should assume when you're going into a book that if it's a classic, it probably has something good to say and it's worth reading. But then, if it's something like Frankenstein and you can kind of get the drift of it and read the high points and skip the boring stuff with Clavel, why not?
Yeah.
I think more teachers and educators would do well to do that for their students.
And probably students would love to read more if they knew that there was that freedom.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just always want to tell people you can quit a book. You can skip the Russian politics in Anna Karenina.
Yep.
I want one of the Bookening's missions to be...
You can read the title of the Red Badge of Courage and then call it good.
I don't need to read that.
I want to attack Crane again because I hated that book as a kid.
It popped into my head earlier as just one of those books. Speaking of Jekyll and Hyde, like one of those books that I was told I should read. I had a copy of. I don't know how many times I tried that book, and I just was like, nope.
I have a suspicion we might like it if we came to it now. I did the same thing that you're describing, but it seems like maybe it was actually good. I don't know.
I mean, there's probably a reason why it was. People tried to force feed it to me. Mm-hmm. I don't know what that reason is. I really did try to find out and was just like, yeah, no, not interested. Don't care.
Well, we got to do Stephen Crane sometime, I suppose.
One day.
Well, what else is there to talk about this novel? People should feel free not to read it or just to, heck, if you've listened to these podcasts, you've gotten most of what's useful about Frankenstein, I think. Brandon's context was more useful than actually reading Frankenstein as far as I'm concerned. Maybe that's a little overstated, but that's kind of what I do is I overstate things just a little bit.
That's what we love about you, Nathan.
Thanks, Brandon. I'm like Victor Frankenstein himself.
You are.
I like to overstate things.
And you have a corpse that you're trying to reanimate in your house.
Yes, I do. Yes,
starting to stink. That's what is that sad that that's all I could really think about in this book?
What
is how is awful his apartment must smell?
How's he keeping this thing from stinking?
Well, now to be fair, Frankenstein in the book, and I just called the monster Frankenstein because that's how lowbrow I am. I just thought it was interesting how little detail it went into as to what.
Yeah, that was totally shocking.
She wouldn't be able to get away with it at that time. I mean, I guess that's just a curiosity of the state of censorship at the time.
Well, but then again, she, her conceit allowed her to not have to and allow it to just sort of have a mystery and mystique about it. Like, it's told by Frankenstein to this guy. And of course, Frankenstein doesn't want anybody repeating his mistakes. So he's not going to give away any details of how it was done.
Yeah.
Good job. You picked a conceit that allowed you absolute liberty to do whatever you wanted.
I wonder if he has that recipe locked away in a vault in Georgia, like the Coke company.
Mm-hmm.
Recipe for creating a reanimated corpse.
Yeah, probably. Just like the Coke company.
They also have.
That's probably what the Coke company is actually hiding in its vault.
A reanimated corpse.
The recipe
Probably Coca-Cola is the secret.
Oh, man.
Reanimated corpses are the secret to Coca-Cola. Is that what you're saying?
Well, that's equally interesting to what I was saying, which is that Coca-Cola is the secret to reanimating corpses.
Oh.
If I feel like a corpse, sometimes if I drink a Coke, I feel reanimated.
And I've drank a lot of Cokes in my life, and I generally feel like a bloated monster.
So it's all...
So it all makes sense.
It all tracks.
We cracked it.
Oh, guys, what else is there to talk about in this novel? Let's see. It's all a metaphor for sex, just like everything is, and it's a rather good one in this case. Good win, a rather good win. Anyone?
Yeah.
Boo.
Boo.
Oh, boy.
How do you know whether how does a ghost express displeasure at a speaker?
Yay. This is, I don't know.
If ghosts just naturally say boo, then what do they do in a situation where they need to indicate that they are displeased with someone who is giving a speech?
They say boo all the more loudly.
Boo.
It'd just be like a bunch of ghosts being ghosts.
They say literal boo.
Literal boo.
No, I think the more interesting question is, how does a ghost express approval? I think the reason they're saying boo all the time is they just disapprove of everyone and everything.
Yeah.
So your theory is that ghosts just are
They're disapproving ghosts.
boo, get a new light fixture. That's the kind of stuff
Yeah,
there.
this is like the chandelier shaking and then you hear boo. It's like, this light fixture is terrible.
Your table sucks.
Your taste is terrible.
Right.
That's why
We're going to tell ghost
my
stories.
house isn't haunted, because I have good taste.
Yeah.
But
my
Brandon's house.
It's haunted because I have bad taste. Easy there.
I will not tell you guys which one of your houses would be more haunted if that was the criteria, or dicteria, as I like to say.
It'd probably be mine.
I will. What's that?
It'd probably be mine.
I'm not going to say. There are things about you guys' decorating styles that I like in each family, and maybe some things I don't, but
What?
who cares about my opinion?
Well, I do.
What's
Everybody listening does.
I do
That's
have
true.
a torture chamber.
You do
Not
have a-
about decor though.
Yeah, not so much about decor.
Ooh.
Ooh. What else is there to talk about? We got a little bit more time to fill here, guys.
Well, what else is there?
Why is there not much to say about this novel? None of us obviously found it to be all that compelling, even
Yeah, I mean, I bet close
The
reads.
staunch defender over here.
Jake the staunch defender, yeah.
Didn't close reads want us to start a flame war again?
Close bleeds.
Close.
Ghost bleeds.
They're not. Are they not nostalgic for that? Okay.
I don't know.
Hi, close reads. All I was
What's up,
going to say
y'all?
is they'd probably find a way to make this into like 10 episodes.
Yeah. Well,
How many chapters long is it? So tell us what. Maybe the close read should tell us what we could have said about this.
Ghost bleeds.
Ghost bleeds. Nosebleeds.
Nosebleeds. No, we're trying to give him a cool Halloween name.
Ghost bleeds.
Ghost bleeds is our friend. Jake went on the he was interviewed by
David
Kern.
David Byrne.
David. He was interviewed by the Talking Heads frontman.
Yes.
David Byrne. That's right. David Byrne. Oh, I don't know. Is there anything else? Okay, the romanticism, we've talked about that. Sex, we've talked about that. Horror, we've talked about that.
It's epistolary.
Yeah.
I hate that sort of thing so much.
You hate epistolary novels.
Yeah, it's an established fact.
Jake has mentioned that he hates epistolary novels.
I hate them when they cheat.
I think they're
I don't
lazy.
like the idea.
I think they can be done well, but I think they're so often just so lazy, and they're an excuse, and they often they come from somebody who's really proud.
Mm-hmm.
I wonder
And so the whole point is like, if I just write all of my profound thoughts as somebody else,
#Gilead.
then it will be seen as, it's just like, oh, please.
Can we think of a good epistolary novel?
You know what I think actually handles the form? It's a little cheesy.
Remains
and
of the Day is sort of,
Yeah.
it's not epistolary, it's a
Journal,
but it's
still-
a journal,
it
but
counts.
it's got that same.
It's not epistles
Yeah.
to someone, but it's
Yeah.
still, it counts.
Yeah.
It's the journal novel, but it's the same
yeah, it's,
Same principle.
same species.
you don't feel it straining under the weight of I'm going to stop writing now so that the plot can move forward, which is
And
how a
actually
lot of
it's
these
a
things.
I'm now going to give some exposition that makes me look, as this character, that makes me look great.
And Ishiguro is smart enough
Right.
and has enough discernment to see your point,
Yeah.
and that he chose that form because it is the form of a proud person.
Mm-hmm.
That's exactly who
Ishigulu.
Gulu.
Isha.
Man, this is a hard novel to talk about.
Well, I didn't like it that much. I didn't hate it.
And I'm sure if we were to just go, so we could go through and just find all the,
The Color Purple, Dracula, The Guernsey Literary and Potato Peel Society.
Mm-hmm. It's a good one.
So Deity.
Screw Tape.
That's true. Screw Tape's a good one.
That's
Screw
a good
Tape's
one.
good. Carrie.
I did not realize that Carrie was epistolary.
84 Charing Cross Road.
No idea what that is.
I'm just reading The Moonstone.
That's right. I
Gilead.
forgot the Moonstone was
Boo.
the Boo Stone.
What did you have a suggestion for how to actually discuss some more Frankenstein there, Brandon?
No, I was going to say, really, the only way to discuss this novel would to be just to go through a very literary analysis style and just point out all the romantic tropes in it.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, that's easy enough to do. We talked about Mont Blanc.
Yep.
All these
The Sorrows of
references
Young
to
Werther.
Coleridge, Sorrows of Young Werther. All these references. She's being very referential.
Mm-hmm.
It's epistolary.
Oh yeah, it is. That's right. I forgot about that. I forgot how it handles the fact that he shoots himself at the end.
Well, I hate when they have to strain to make the plot. Like in Dracula, there's that ridiculous part where not Mina Harker, but the other one is dying because Dracula just killed her. And she's like, I must write my thoughts before, as my mother bleeds out next to me and I'm also bleeding out. The one thing I must do is make a
Grab
final
my journal.
yeah. You imagine that it just ends with a long pen scratch as her. It's like the Monty Python
It's
thing. where
exactly.
the-
Monty Python. The castle.
Oh man, guys, is that the first time we've referenced Monty Python? It's something that I really feel like the Bookening should try and avoid, because when people reference a lot of Monty Python, it's not always a sign of
I think it might be the
Awesomeness.
first time that. Well, it can't possibly in 3 years be the first time.
It's not a sign of what?
it's not always necessarily a sign of awesomeness. When I like Monty Python,
No, it's often a sign of fake awesomeness.
right? But a lot of faux poser people like to quote Monty Python a lot.
See, I'm sophisticated because I like old British humor. Ha ha.
Or I'm a frat boy. It's like two weird groups of people, frat boys and sophisticated quote unquote people really like to quote Monty Python.
And yet, Monty Python's still kind of.
Yeah, it's still good.
It's funny.
It is. If you're someone out there that quotes Monty Python, the Bookening loves you and supports you. Just don't do it in the wrong way.
Or to us.
Or to us. Yes. Frankenstein. Yes. It's the name of the doctor, not the monster.
Yeah, it's an important point to make.
Do we make that point?
Nope.
The hack point that
It's not Frankenstein as the monster. It's Frankenstein's monster.
Frankenstein.
should people watch Young Frankenstein?
Oh, man.
No, they should not watch Young
No, they
Frankenstein.
Yeah, but it's pretty funny.
It's
It's
funny, but
hilarious.
don't
and
watch it.
I remember a couple years, 4 or 5 years ago, watching it again and thinking,
So do I.
wow.
Yeah, Brendan remembers that.
I got into hot water for that.
I heard about that.
Yeah.
Not one of my shining moments there.
Everybody's done that. You just did it on a larger scale.
That's my problem.
Watch Apocalypse Now for the Bookening. That was my most recent one. All right, guys, let's do. Sorry, folks, we like to give you bang for your buck, but I just don't know what else to say about Frankenstein.
They got bang for their buck. This is great.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Every episode of the Bookening is wonderful.
I'm a fan.
If they just get to spend a little bit of time with us, that's all.
Yeah. You
I'm-
just need to give us more money.
Yeah, if you want us to do 3 more episodes on Frankenstein, just give us $1,000.
Yeah,
No
we'd happily do
one-star
3 more
reviews.
episodes.
Yeah, no 1-star reviews.
Whoever that was pretty passive aggressive of you.
Yeah,
Because it's a 1-star rating and not a review.
which
You gotta let us know what you didn't like.
And you're probably the type of person that you give 1-star reviews and yet you still listen to us.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
probably.
You're just so you're pathetic.
You probably wear a scarf when it's not cold.
Oh, what they didn't mention was yada yada yada.
Yes.
1 star.
Well, it's hard to respect a 1-star rating that doesn't come with a review.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Go back and give us a review, then we'll actually have something to say
To
about you.
respond to,
Yeah.
to think about,
Yeah.
you know?
Write us a
Maybe you
letter.
actually have something valid to say. We will never know that.
No.
Thanks.
Yep. All you're doing is proving your pettiness.
Mm-hmm.
Like Just Emily C, she gave us a 3-star review, and she explained why.
Yeah.
I appreciate Just Emily C for that.
Her name might as well just be Emily. See how awesome she is.
Yeah. I mean, what she said was, if Christianity isn't your thing, this may not be the podcast for you. I like their book discussions, though. 3
I
stars.
agree 100%. If Christianity is not your thing, this may not be the podcast for you, but you might like our book discussions.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And other
3
non-Christians
stars.
have said the same thing.
I'd always
Well-
like to see a 5-star review. That's better. But
We got a 4-star review from a non-Christian, and it's titled Review from a Non-Christian, and it's awesome.
Yeah.
Should I read it? This is the kind of thoughtful review that's actually helpful to people.
Yeah, go ahead.
I stumbled upon this podcast while looking for discussion about Anna Karenina and was pleasantly surprised. I've listened to a couple more episodes since and have found these guys to be perceptive and well-researched. They have great chemistry, and their taste in literature is very similar to my own. It's always exciting to listen to a book discussion where the hosts share all of your literary reference points. It's like,
I get all my references.
Yep.
That's what I was going to reference.
Yep.
Cormac McCarthy, Raymond Chandler, etc., as well as more classic authors. It doesn't hurt that they're smarter than... All right, this is going to sound self-aggrandizing for me to read.
Well, you didn't write it,
Sorry,
though.
I didn't write it. It doesn't hurt that they're smarter than me and bring up points that might have gone over my head.
We're smarter than this guy.
Now, to the Christian element. Like I said, my first experience with this podcast came about after searching for episodes, specifically on Anna Karenina. So initially, I wasn't aware that this was partly a Christian perspective podcast. As a non-religious person, secular humanist, I guess, I had a real wait, what moment towards the end of the episode. And one of the hosts didn't like the nebulous ending and said Wish Levin had turned specifically to Christ. I don't like the nebulous ending either, but for different reasons. Anyway, I have to admit, little moments like these do jar me a bit. If you're not religious, it feels totally out of left field.
Now, just to pause there, I don't really think that we needed Levin to turn to Christ at the end of Anna Karenina. That would be a very weird ending to that novel. I vaguely remember what he's talking about.
I vaguely remember too. I think I'd have to go back to listen to. I don't think we need remember. Like our heroes of all of our novels to have a turn to Jesus.
That was the real problem with Frankenstein, right, boys? That there wasn't
an altar
turn to Jesus.
A gospel. He didn't.
Well,
the gospel
no, but we did say something.
I do think that every book should end with the Baptist Church altar call.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
I'm not making fun of this guy. This guy is absolutely correct, and I'm sure whatever we said about Anna Karenina makes sense in context. It's just
in another episode, I seem to remember someone saying there can be no dignity without God or something to that effect. Again, don't get me wrong, these hosts are anything but smug, but one common aspect of Christianity and most religions, I guess, is that believers often see themselves as in possession of the one and only truth, so they can't imagine that anyone can have a fulfilling life without their particular God in it. Like I said, these guys are very likable, knowledgeable, and self-aware, but if you find the endorsement of a specific sectarian belief system in itself a bit obnoxious, this might not be the podcast for you. I guess it's a testament to how much I enjoy other elements of the show that this doesn't stop me from listening. In a lesser podcast, it definitely would. This is a very sweet review, even though I hope if he's still listening, he understands better where we're coming from today than when he wrote this review.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you should let us know if you're still listening.
But what's great about this review is it's thoughtful, it's critical, it explains his perspective, and it's got his full name there.
And it's potentially helpful to other people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. So go give us a thoughtful review, guys. If you're going to be critical, that's fine. You want to give us 1 star? Go right ahead. We can take it. But explain it to us and help us and try to be helpful to the other people. That's the point of a review. It's not just to puff us.
Yep. And this guy that thinks we're a Christian perspective thing, we're going to throw some bricks through his window.
Right. Because we know his name.
Thank you. Right,
yeah.
We're going to look him up.
with a thank you.
We're going to dox him.
I agree with what you just said, Jake. Okay. I'm just kidding. Of course, 1 star. The guy that left the 1 star, what he needs to do is he needs to undo the 1 star. He needs to actually buy us a star in the star registry. Name it after Brandon.
Yeah. Like great.
The Brandon Star.
Buy me Polaris. I want to be the North Star.
I mean, I guess that one's already been taken, but...
Yeah, if you want to give us a 1-star review, give us a 1-star review and explain that the reason you gave us a 1-star review is because you bought us a star in the star registry.
Yeah, and then buy us 4 more stars so that you can...
it after us. There's a star named the Bookening out there somewhere now.
Nice.
Right.
Do it. I think
Do it.
Hey, I just want to say, in case they missed it, Clayton Hutchins and Z Grace Z, still the 2 best reviews in all of iTunes history.
Not to knock any of the other reviews, because they're all wonderful.
No, I mean
Mr.
Travis Michael's review, whose review I just read, pretty great.
Right.
But Clayton Hutchins and Z Grace Z, the 2 greatest reviews in all of iTunes history, all of Apple podcast history.
How can people join the club of these great reviews?
Oh, it's very simple. It's very simple. Clayton Hutchins' review reads like this. The Bookening is the greatest, most charming, most intelligent podcast I've ever listened to. By no means am I under the imperious curse. And Z Grace Z's reads, The Bookening is the greatest, most charming, most intelligent podcast I've ever listened to. By no means am I under the imperious curse.
Pretty great.
Yeah.
So take a hint.
Yep. We
Join the club of Apple's greatest reviews.
Yep.
You leave us a review that good, we'll read it on the air. As we've done. Hey guys, let's do some donor shout outs.
Do you have to go?
You probably have to run out the door. You want me and Brandon to handle donor shout outs?
Would you please?
Jake has to go, folks. Say goodbye to Jake.
Give us a scream.
Yeah, give us a scream.
All right, let's do it.
All right, do it. Yeah. All right, Brandon. Jake's banging around as he leaves. He's picking up his Fu Manchu or whatever that food is. He's got a little Tupperware cup of, what's it called? Quinoa.
Let's do it. I've got about 7 minutes myself.
Okay, let's go really fast. Chelsea E. Nathan. Jimmy Beam and little Annie Oakley. The inscrutable Jenny Z. Lily of the Valley. Andrew and Esther, the Lovebirds. Robert and Rhonda, the Lovebirds. John and Jill and little baby Max. My beloved mother, Beth. Ryan and Judith and Danny the Dude. Danny the Dude. DJ Sammy G. Goodbye, Jake. Jay and Katie, the Lovebirds.
They're cold and love cheese.
Benny. Oh, yeah, no, sorry. They're cold and love cheese.
Nathan, get it right.
Benny and Danity. Eric and Catherine.
The Lovebird.
And Professor X. Professor X. Professor X. Dun, 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 dun. Bookening was written, produced, stuff, things. Thanks for listening, everybody.
Bye.
Bye. Die.